Urban legends are some of the most fascinating and unsettling stories we tell. They spread like whispers through schools, small towns, and now across the internet. Everyone has heard at least one. The woman in white who roams riversides, the faceless man in the woods, the car that stalks neighborhoods at night. And while most people know these are just stories, there's still something about them that sticks. Even when we laugh, even when we tell ourselves they're not real, there's always that lingering thought. What if they are? But why is that? Why do so many people in different parts of the world believe in these kinds of stories? Why do tales about the slit-mouthed woman, La Llorona, the vanishing hitchhiker, or the bunny man convince entire communities that something supernatural is really out there? Let's take a deeper look. The first reason urban legends feel believable is because they don't invent new fears out of thin air. Instead, they tap into anxieties that already exist deep inside of us. Almost every legend is built around something humans naturally fear: being alone at night, encountering a stranger you can't quite trust, hearing noises in the dark, or losing someone you love. These fears are ancient. They've been with us since the beginning of time, and that's what makes legends so effective. Take the slit-mouthed woman, for example. The story isn't just scary because of her grotesque smile. It's terrifying because she looks almost human, but not quite. That almost but not quite feeling hits a nerve in our brains because we're programmed to detect when something isn't right about another person. La Llorona, on the other hand, isn't just about a ghostly woman crying by the water. It's about the ultimate fear of losing a child. Anyone who's ever been responsible for someone else, especially a parent, understands that dread. The vanishing hitchhiker works the same way. It plays on both kindness and suspicion. Should you trust the stranger on the side of the road, or should you keep driving? Either choice could be dangerous, and that tension makes the story believable. These legends scare us because they take fears we already know and simply give them a face. Another reason urban legends survive and spread so easily is because many of them are built like cautionary tales. On the surface, they're just spooky stories, but underneath, they're designed to teach lessons and keep people safe. A parent might tell their child not to go near the river at night because La Llorona could be waiting. A teacher might warn students not to wander home alone because the slit-mouthed woman might appear. At first glance, these are just stories to frighten kids, but there's logic hidden inside the warning. Don't walk alone at night. Don't play near dangerous water. Don't trust strangers without thinking. That makes them harder to dismiss, because even if you don't believe in the ghost, you still believe in the advice behind the ghost. The legend becomes a tool for survival, and when something is tied to keeping you alive, your brain treats it as more real. Over time, those warnings evolve into entire belief systems. People may not consciously believe every word of the legend, but they live by the rules it teaches, and in some ways, that's a form of belief all its own. Urban legends also feel believable because so many of them are rooted in real events. They don't just come out of nowhere. There's often a seed of truth at the center. That seed might be a crime, a disappearance, or a tragedy that really happened, which later becomes exaggerated or twisted into something supernatural. Cropsey is a perfect example. For years, children in New York heard about a figure called Cropsey, a boogeyman who kidnapped kids. Parents used the story to keep their children from wandering too far. At first, it was dismissed as nothing more than a scary tale. But then, when a man was caught in the area who had actually been abducting children, the legend suddenly had a horrifying layer of truth. In that moment, Cropsey wasn't just a story, it was real enough. And once something like that happens, people stop asking, "Is this legend true?" Instead, they start asking, "How much of it is true?" The same thing happens with haunted locations. A road where accidents happen again and again, or a house where multiple families suffer tragedies, will naturally build up legends over time. The human brain tries to explain why bad things keep happening, and the easiest explanation is that the place itself is cursed. Whether or not the supernatural part is real, the tragedies are, and that's enough to convince people that the stories shouldn't be ignored. One of the most powerful tools urban legends have is the way they spread. You don't usually discover them in a book labeled fiction. You hear them from a friend, a classmate, or a family member. And when a story comes from someone you trust, it instantly feels more real. Think about it. If your best friend tells you, "My cousin swears he saw the black Volga when he was a kid," you're going to take that more seriously than if you read it in a random story online. That's because the connection is personal. Even though the story has probably been told and retold dozens of times before it reaches you, the fact that it came from your circle makes it feel authentic. That's how legends survive. They're built on trust and passed down like secrets. And as they pass through different voices, the details change. A small story about a car becomes a tale of a demonic vehicle that steals souls. A strange noise by the river becomes a full-bodied ghost. Each retelling makes the legend bigger and scarier, until people stop questioning whether it happened at all. Urban legends love to hide in the spaces where we don't have all the answers. They live in dark forests, on abandoned roads, in empty houses, or in places where strange tragedies happen. And the reason they thrive there is because humans hate uncertainty. If someone disappears in a forest, the rational explanation might be that they got lost or were attacked by an animal. But for communities, that explanation often doesn't feel satisfying. It leaves too many questions unanswered. Instead, people come up with a story, a creature in the woods, a spirit that haunts travelers. Suddenly, the unknown has an explanation, and even though it's terrifying, it feels better than chaos. That's the real power of legends. They don't just scare us, they give us answers. And when the world feels confusing or dangerous, an answer, even a supernatural one, feels easier to accept than silence. Another important detail is that the best urban legends are believable because they don't stray too far from reality. They don't describe giant monsters destroying cities or impossible creatures from another planet. Instead, they take ordinary situations and twist them just slightly. A woman crying by the water, a hitchhiker who disappears, a car with tinted windows cruising slowly through a neighborhood. These are everyday experiences that people already recognize. Because they're rooted in reality, they feel possible. The supernatural twist, the ghost, the curse, the evil driver, isn't what hooks you. It's the fact that it all starts in a situation you could find yourself in. That's why urban legends are scarier than pure fantasy. They don't require you to imagine dragons or magic. They require you to imagine walking home at night and hearing footsteps behind you. That closeness to real life is what convinces people the story could be true. Belief in urban legends doesn't happen in isolation. It grows because entire groups reinforce it. When everyone around you believes the same thing, it's much harder to dismiss it. If your whole town swears that the abandoned house is haunted, you probably won't be the one to break in and test it. If every kid at school whispers about Bloody Mary appearing in mirrors, you'll think twice before trying it at a sleepover. Legends become real not just because of the details of the story, but because of the community that repeats and enforces them. That's how urban legends become traditions. They're told not just as entertainment, but as part of a group's identity. This is our haunted road. This is our cursed forest. Over time, the story becomes part of the community itself, and that gives it even more power. Urban legends also last because they're passed down over time, gaining credibility with every generation. Stories like La Llorona or the Vanishing Hitchhiker aren't just modern inventions. They've been around for centuries, appearing in different cultures under different names. When a story survives that long, it begins to feel less like a tale and more like folklore, even history. People stop asking where it came from and instead accept it as something that's always been there. That longevity makes legends almost impossible to kill. They don't need proof, because the fact that everyone has always known this story becomes proof enough. Another reason people believe is because our brains are wired to find patterns, even when they don't exist. If 2 or 3 strange events happen in the same place, people don't see coincidence. they see a pattern. For example, if multiple accidents happen on the same stretch of road, people start to say the road is cursed. If two children go missing near a river, suddenly La Llorona is blamed. Once the idea is planted, every future event seems to fit the pattern, even if it doesn't. Urban legends thrive because they offer a story that connects the dots. And for the human brain, that's far more satisfying than randomness. Finally, the biggest reason people believe urban legends is because they sit perfectly in the middle ground between real and fake. They're not so unbelievable that you can dismiss them outright, but they're not so ordinary that they can be explained away. If someone told you they saw a dragon flying over the city, you laugh. But if someone said they heard a woman crying by the river at midnight, you hesitate. That's the sweet spot where legends live, just believable enough to keep you wondering. And that wondering, that tiny bit of doubt, is what keeps them alive. So why do people believe in urban legends? Because they speak to the fears we all share. Because they're tied to real tragedies. Because they're passed down through trusted voices and reinforced by entire communities. And because they don't ask you to believe in something outrageous, they only ask you to believe in something possible. That possibility is the hook. It's the reason these stories have survived for centuries, and why even in our modern, high-tech world, we still whisper them to each other. Because even when you tell yourself it's just a story, you can't help but ask, what if it's true? And sometimes, that single question is scarier than the legend itself. If you like this breakdown, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more explorations of legends, hauntings, and paranormal mysteries. And let me know in the comments, what's one urban legend from your town that people still swear is real?